instituted the marriage of Adam and Eve. So that was a very nice thing because it was God Himself did it. That was the first couple that God did. The wedding of Adam and Eve, and I'm sure that the wedding was not kind of a wedding like today. They have to rent. Like in Las Vegas, but the wedding was just in the garden, right? It was just a garden wedding. Yeah, a simple, like, uh,
It's not simple because we have a garden, beautiful garden.
that's a beautiful garden. Yes, yeah, beautiful garden. That's all you need. I mean, you don't need those, lots of. It's just a simple. The way I see it is just a nature. Surrounded
The
by
wedding
nature.
we have is the most beautiful wedding.
The most, yes, the most, yeah,
God.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, now the two institutions that was actually being, it says here, this is from Signs of the Times, February 28, 1884. There were two institutions founded in Eden that were not lost in the fall: the Sabbath and the marriage relation. These were carried by man beyond the gates of paradise. So in other words, the Sabbath and the marriage. So the marriage continues even today. People are getting married, but the Sabbath, which was the original God, the 7-day Sabbath, for how many years it was lost? I mean, the Sabbath is still there, but it was changed. It was changed. I know the enemy is trying to change it, but it says here, this were carried by man beyond the gates of paradise. It was carried. So there's people actually who still continue to do this, and we are actually one of that. He who loves and observes the Sabbath and maintains the purity of the marriage institution thereby proves himself the friend of man and the friend of God. So when we actually keep these two institutions, we are faithful to the Sabbath. If we are faithful to the Sabbath, we are faithful to the marriage. If we are faithful to the marriage, we are faithful to the Sabbath. It's just vice versa, and we are the friend of man and the friend of God. He who by precept or example lessens the obligation of these sacred institutions is the enemy of both God and man, and is using his influence and his God-given talents to bring in a state of confusion and moral corruption. Okay, so if we want to be friend with God, we have to keep these two institutions that were created by God in the beginning. But a lot of people today abuse these two institutions. They have abused this. So in this topic, let's deal with 4 subtopics here. First, we will try to study first part is dealing with those who plan to stay single. Second, dealing with those who are planning to get married. Third part is dealing with those who are married already. So it's just 3 only here. So the first part, let's go to those who plan to stay single. Can you be alone? Can you stay single? Is it God's design that you can be by yourself? Okay. Remember, there's a song that says, "No man is an island." But, there's people who's just like an island, they can just stay by themselves, I mean, yeah, they are actually, they're not human beings, but, they're able to do that. But as a human being, how many years, like Sister Amine, for many years, there's people that have been single for how many years, you can, Paul said, this is what Paul said in 1 Corinthians, now concerning the things whereof ye wrote unto me, it is good for man not to touch a woman. Okay, it is good for man not to touch a woman. Nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. Okay, so if you can stand by yourself, there's nothing wrong. But to avoid fornication, better to have somebody with you. Okay? So that's what Paul is trying to say here. Let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. I say therefore to the unmarried and widows, it is good for them if they abide, even as I. So even Paul himself was single, you know. Paul was able to endure by himself. What would be his secret, you know? He was able to stay single, Paul. I think when you're busy doing God's work, there's no time for that, you know. For those people who are single, who dedicate themselves working for the Lord, there's no time because you're busy, right? You're busy. But when you're just by yourself and nothing to do, then you will be thinking of something else. Paul was, that's why Paul said, you know, to those who are unmarried, it's good for them if they can abide, just like I. But if they cannot contain, then the advice is let them marry. For it is better to marry than to burn. Okay? So it's important, you know. I mean, God did not actually, God did not say that, you know, you have to stay single, you know. I mean, if God only created Adam, there was no Eve. I mean, how could this world be populated or, you know, with people, right? I think the design was to populate this earth. You know, even if before sin happened, the command was already given, go and multiply, you know. So in other words, you know, even before sin, this world will still be populated by people, okay? But without sin, though, just like those other other worlds. In 1 Corinthians 7:28, another text here, Paul said, but and if thou marry, okay, thou hast not sinned. So you don't sin if you don't, you know, if you marry, you don't sin. And if a virgin marry, she hath not sinned. Nevertheless, such shall have trouble in the flesh. So there will be some trouble in the flesh, because flesh is flesh, right? But I spare you. That's what Paul said. But what is the difference between the married and the unmarried when it comes to responsibility? You know, when you're married, your responsible is to the Lord and to your spouse, right? When you're unmarried, then your responsibility is only to God. You only care for God, you know, because there's nobody with you. That's what here in 1 Corinthians 7:30 to 35. But I would have you without carefulness. He that is unmarried careth for the things that belong to the Lord, how he may please the Lord. But he that is married careth for the things that are of the world, how he may please his wife. Therefore, there is difference also between a wife and a virgin. The unmarried woman careth for the things of the Lord, that she may be holy both in body and in spirit. But she that is married careth for the things of the world, how she may please her husband. And this I speak for your own profit, not that I may cast a snare upon you, but for that which is comely, and that ye may attend upon the Lord without destruction. Okay, so two things, you know. So the difference between the married and unmarried is so clear here, that when you're married, you know, you don't just care for yourself, you care for your wife, for your spouse, and also for the Lord, okay? But for those unmarried, then they only care for the Lord, because there's nothing for them to care except themselves, okay? And there's nothing wrong to get married. That's what Paul is saying here. So now let's go to the second part here, okay? Let's go to the second part, okay. I hope that okay, hold on, let me try to, okay, right, let me see here, okay. Now, second part is dealing with those who are planning to get married. Now, nobody is planning here to get married, right? Second part. Now, in Deuteronomy, God has given us a counsel here. It says here in Deuteronomy 7:1-4, it says, when the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, and hath cast out many nations before thee, like the Hittites, the Girgasites, the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. And when the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. Neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son, for they will turn away thy son following me, that they may serve other gods. So will the anger of the Lord be kindled against you and destroy thee suddenly. So the command is given to the children of Israel that, I've given you this kind of Canaan, the land of Canaan, and you are not supposed to intermarriages with the Canaanites. All this people being mentioned here. So there is a command by God that you cannot marry people who doesn't believe what you believe. Especially not of the same faith, right? That's why we are being admonished that we cannot actually marry the unbeliever. Paul is trying to say here, this is from 2 Corinthians 6:14-18. Be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness, and what communion hath light with darkness? And what concord hath Christ with Belial? Or what part hath he that believeth with an infidel? So you cannot actually yoke up with somebody who doesn't believe what you believe. Okay, that's what God said to the children of Israel. You cannot give your children or your son to the daughters of the Canaanites, nor your daughters to the sons of the Canaanites. You cannot do that. It says here, what fellowship? Okay, what agreement hath the temple of God with idols? For ye are the temple of the living God, as God hath said. I will dwell in them and walk in them. I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Wherefore come out from among them, and be separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you, and will be a father unto you, and ye shall be my sons and daughters, saith the Lord Almighty. So we cannot yoke with the unbelievers. But today, actually, this promise is not being followed. The people today, especially the young people, they think that they are wiser than God. So they think they know better than God, and they know which one that they like. They follow their own imagination or their own decision. But God knew better than us. He knew already what's going to happen, right? I mean, what's going to happen if you marry somebody that doesn't believe what you believe? What will happen to the family, to the children? It will be divided, right? It will be divided. That's why in Amos 3, we are told, can two walk together except they be agreed? I mean, if you're not agreeing, I mean, you're not able to walk with each other. That's why we have a friend that we know in California before. Even though he doesn't have no legs, both of the legs actually were out, but he was still able to find somebody with him because they have the same, I think the same taste, the same likes, the same, ideas. They share the same thoughts, and that's what God wants us. Can two walk together except they be agreed? And it says here also in Adventist home, as a sincere Christian will not advance his plans to this direction without the knowledge that God approves his course. He will not want to choose for himself, but will feel that God must choose for him. Any example in the Bible that this advice was followed? Huh? Well, who is being mentioned in the Bible? The